We again, like from our last episode, we don't do a ton of gaming. We do a little bit, but one of the trends that I've noticed as these games are getting better and more in depth is that the games themselves that have been coming out recently are actually surpassing the source material that they're based on, almost in every way. So like the
In
case
terms of narrative?
in terms of narrative, in terms of entertainment value, in terms of the stories that are being told and the complexity.
I know what you're talking about. I
yeah.
experienced the Walking Dead slot machine during season 3, and the slot machine was way more tighter narratively than the Walking Dead was at that point.
You know, you might have a point. I didn't play the slot machine, but I did play Telltale Games' The Walking Dead, and
Tell me about
honestly, it is the best Walking Dead story that has ever been told, hands down.
you've read all the comics.
Better than the comics, like by a million miles better
I know
than
you
the
saw
comics.
Fear.
Better than Fear the Walking Dead, but not by much. Fear was actually quite good. Probably better than most of the actual television show of Walking Dead, although recently it has quite picked up, and we'll talk about that in the TV segment. But yeah, the idea that games have gone from being something that you'd play in an arcade and didn't really have very much of a story to something that can actually be so compelling that it's actually worth paying attention to as an art form. That's been a huge shift for me. Like in terms of having played PC games for as long as we have, watching that happen has actually been quite the treat. But it's just a very interesting trend because this isn't the only game that's done it. There's been a ton of things that have come out over the last little while that I think you could argue are better than the stuff that it's based on.
I'm starting to get a sense that the biggest big ticket games that have all the downloadable content, you have to pay for all of it, all the pre-ordering shit that's going on. I'm wondering if there's going to be bigger followings for the smaller games that just eschew this model completely.
I think so. I think
it's do something special on their own.
I think you're seeing that. Like I think
in a limited scope.
Yeah, the problem with gamers as consumers is that we tend to spend money just about on every single game that comes out, right? Like a lot of people that are serious about the hobby will collect a lot of different games, right? So I mean, I don't know if there's that much of a demarcation between people who buy the AAA stuff, like say like Battlefield and stuff like this. And there was a Star Wars Battlefield game that just came out. That
good God, does that look amazing?
Yeah, the graphics wise, it looks great, but the
Assassin's Creed is coming.
Yeah,
out, right?
Assassin's Creed is out now as well, or is coming out very shortly if it hasn't already been released, and that looked pretty good. But the problem with a lot of the AAA games though is that you're not getting a complete game. Like with the Star Wars games, the Battlefront, they have a season pass that's basically double the price of the actual game itself. So you can buy the core game for $60, or you can buy the core game plus the season pass, which gets you 4 DLC releases plus like some extra skins and stuff for another $60. So it's $120 you're
That's
spending
obscene.
on this game. It is ridiculous. It's like basically, I mean, people make fun of us sometimes for playing World of Warcraft when we did that back in the day, and that was $15 a month. But you got a lot of stuff.
You got everything.
Yeah, like nothing was gated to you. They only recently started doing stuff like these charity things that you could buy in the Blizzard store to kind of support different things or whatever, like cosmetic pets or mounts or things like that.
Being able to buy time chips.
Yeah, now it's kind of progressed to the point where you can actually convert gold from in the game to almost like real money, because you can actually buy tokens to be used to pay for game time using your gold that you got in the game. So if you're
which is fantastic.
Yeah, if you're like one of these people that are like really good at getting gold in World of Warcraft, you don't have to pay for the game anymore. Which I mean, these AAA games, they don't do that.
but then other players pay for that time.
Yeah.
So it gets paid for somehow. It just divides up who pays for it and when.
Yeah, and exactly.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the model.
No, I think it's a great way to go, because I mean, if you are diligent enough, you can actually play for your game just from playing it, like if you know what you're doing or whatever. And it's not that hard to do. I mean, a lot of these games have like entire websites devoted to them where you can find out the best tips and tricks for maximizing your time online.
But the game was never pay to win.
Yeah, it was never pay to win,
and it still isn't, to my knowledge. Which was to the model. I mean, we paid $15 a month, but it was an all-inclusive resort.
Yep.
It was all you could drink and all you could eat.
Yeah.
Exactly. And as many hours as you wanted to spend, and nobody cared.
And there's a lot of games that have done that. Like where Star Wars Battlefront is not that way. The Star Wars MMO, the Old Republic game that they've got out, that BioWare produces. So BioWare is the company that does Mass Effect and Dragon Age and some of these other games. That game is free to play as well. Like, so you can actually play the entire MMO for free. If you pay, you get access to everything. If you're doing the free model, then there's certain things that are turned off in terms of like features in the game, but not necessarily ones that break the game balance. It's more just convenience things. Like, so for
That's
example,
livable
like
too.
yeah, you get like more bag space, you get more, you know, like
Okay,
if you pay
so-
so it's they're nice treats like that. So they follow the Dungeons and Dragons online model, which was the same way, where
That's okay
basically
too.
yeah, which is fine. I mean, if you they reward subscribers by unlocking everything, but if you don't subscribe, you still have the way of getting at all the important content without doing anything. So, but speaking of the MMO, this is another instance of this trend where the game itself is actually better than a lot of the stuff that's been put out. So there was a game way back in the day for PC and for Xbox called Knights of the Old Republic, and that was like a Star Wars game that took place.
Right. I know all about it. Never actually played it. It was supposed to be a fantastic story.
It was amazing. Both of it and its sequel were amazingly well told Star Wars stories that made you actually care about the setting that it was being told in, and they take place like 1,000 years before the normal game or whatever, right? It's like way back when there's like
1,000 years before
like the
episode
events
1.
of yeah, exactly. So it's it's way back in the ancient history of that place. But the Old Republic game is basically set in the same universe. It's considered to be Knights of the Old Republic 3, essentially. And the way that it's put together is that your character is you go through an entire story arc with the class and the character that you pick, and all of the expansions that have come out so far have put you front and center. So there's a new one, Knights of the Fallen Empire, that's come out for this game, where they introduce a third faction. So there's the Sith, there are the Jedi, and now there's this third group of people who don't view the Force as being something that's good or evil. That's just a means to an end.
It just is.
For them. It just is. Yeah. So it's it looks amazing. We're going to include the trailer, the cinematic trailer for the expansion in the show notes, but you should watch it if you haven't had a chance to see
I
it.
haven't seen it.
Yeah,
I'll take a look.
it is completely amazing because the story that they're telling just in the 4-minute trailer was more compelling than anything the prequels ever gave. Which I found like just really kind of amazing, given the fact that this is a game. Like, it's not supposed to be something that's competing directly with the media that it's based on.
Right.
But honestly, it really does. There's been other things too, like Transformers, even, for example. So there's a new
That's the
Transformers.
one I linked to you.
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't fully understand what it was I linked, but it sounded exciting.
It looks amazing. Like, so Transformers Devastation. This is the new game that just came out. It's a kind of an action fighter, spectacle fighter game, or similar to Bayonetta or some of these other games, where you pick the role of an Autobot. They give you a whole bunch that you can choose from, and you run around just like basically fighting everything. Like, okay. You fight the world. The world's destructible. All the robots that you're fighting are destructible. You can be like the crazy Dino Tyrannosaurus Rex bot or whatever. Grimlock. He's a character that's playable. Optimus
Awesome.
Prime
He's one
is
of
in
my
there and
favorites.
stuff. But the cool thing about it is that the animation style that they use in the game is the same as the 80s cartoon. So right down to like all the different the moves that they do and everything else. It looks so much like the cartoon. It's just incredible.
That's cool.
So I mean, for as much as I don't like nostalgia, if you see the game being played, it's actually kind of neat because you're basically controlling a version of the cartoon. So essentially, you're making the cartoon better, the property that this whole Transformers.
That's a completely
movie
different thing, though, than what it is that you dislike, and it's not surprising
Yeah.
that you find it completely.
Exciting. It's different because it's like they're taking something that is existing and they're improving on it tenfold because you get the control, like you get to tell the story or whatever.
So different,
which
than
is
just
amazing.
rehashing the past
Yeah.
and selling it to you.
But I mean, the trend with the Transformers games has been completely different than the movies. Like, the movies have all made a ton of money, but they're really dumb. And I don't think there's a lot of people that would argue against that.
No.
But the games, like, there were 2 games before this one that just came out, War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, which all take place in the Transformers universe, but that actually had really compelling stories to tell. Like, as compelling as a property that's based on a toy can be.
Right.
The games themselves were actually really, really well done, and they were probably miles ahead of the movies and miles ahead of the original cartoon. Even like the only thing I think that came out of the cartoon that people still kind of cling to or remember in terms of good storytelling was the actual full-length movie that came out where they kill Optimus Prime and all that stuff. Yeah, so I mean,
phenomenal being a relative thing.
Yeah, but exactly. I mean, it surpassed the television show for sure.
Absolutely.
But I mean, in terms of the movies, it was really the best Transformers movie out of like the 5 that have been released, including that one. Really, there's no comparison.
Oh
at all.
yeah, it was
but
so entertaining,
so
different.
The War and Fall games are almost equally as compelling. Like, you have a whole host of characters that you can pick from to play. There's a narrative that's going on around you. There's lots of things that make use of the transformation aspect of the characters. That it's not just gimmicky. Like, you're actually doing real things. Like, well, I have to be a vehicle now because I've got to get through this part, or whatever.
I played a Transformers game like that for, I don't remember which system it was, where you had to actually become a car at certain points, and combat that you did involved switching from robot to vehicle form to enable certain things that you could do.
So going full circle, had I never seen any of these things before with regards to, like, say, the Star Wars movies or whatever, if I got into the game now, I would think it was the most amazing thing that was ever done because of the content that they've produced and the stories they've been able to tell and everything else. Apparently, on the comic side of things, Star Wars has gotten out really interesting recently as well, and the comic series that have come out recently that don't even tie in with the movies at all. They're just like, new stories that have been told or whatever. Seem really awesome as well. But I mean, but the fact is that the games now have become kind of where it's at, and it didn't used to be that way. Like with a lot of the movies that come out, the game that comes out with the movie is usually the most terrible thing ever. Like I don't know if people remember the Harry Potter games for PC or whatever. But
E.T. for the Atari 2600.
Like they were all just so terrible, and Harry Potter especially was terrible because they couldn't use any of the music from the movies. They couldn't use anything because Warner Brothers wouldn't license it to them.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, the first Harry Potter game that actually got a license to use the music was the Harry Potter Lego game for the Wii way back in the day, and the Xbox 360 and some of the other platforms.
I find this plausible, because I thought Dark Forces was a fantastic game, and I thought it had a really great story.
Yeah, it did.
There wasn't a lot to it, but I was
but for an FPS, I mean, for a first-person shooter, it was like one of the most amazing games that was ever released because
I played the hell out of it.
Yeah.
I loved that game.
And then Jedi Knight when it came out, that was another great game.
Jedi Knight 2, I played the hell out of both of them. A lot of fun.
The stories behind them in the single-player missions were really good. I mean, it made you want to play, and I don't know, like in terms of the computer stuff. I mean, I guess for the Star Wars side of things, it's been happening for a while because if you look back, the old X-Wing and TIE Fighter games had really amazing stories. Yeah, I know. In terms of game experience, it was amazing. I put like a huge amount of hours into TIE Fighter when I was in university.
I spent a lot of time on both of them. X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and X-Wing. I played them all to
and
death.
I mean, in absence of having like the prequels to look forward to, I mean, that was basically it for fandom.
This was it.
And the video games kept it alive. But I mean, the trend has basically continued and increased tenfold because the stories that are being told now in some of these universes are just incredible. I guess the last big one I wanted to bring up was Game of Thrones. So I mean, we know kind of what the story is going to be based on what we've read in the books, and I mean, the shows have been quite good. But the game, which is also by the same company as released Walking Dead, which is Telltale Games, actually lets you basically participate as a minor family within the whole political intrigue.
It's an RPG as well.
It's the same kind of game as Walking Dead. So it's like it's a game where you make decisions, and the decisions that you make with the characters that you're given in the context of the story have far-reaching consequences in further chapters of the game. But it's more like of a point-and-click adventure and a little bit arcade smashy, but it's not too bad. Yeah. So I mean, but it's the first chapter of that. We'll put the link in the notes. But the first chapter of that game, it's released in 5 chapters, is for free right now. If you go to Amazon.com, you can actually experience it yourself.
Desktop game or
it's for PC and then also for mobile devices. So you can actually get it for iOS and.
I should go grab it.
Yeah, if you have an iPad, I think it's like the minimum is like 2 that you have to have in order to play them. But so the requirements are not very strenuous.
That's good.
But the people in the game, the cast members that aren't your immediate family in the game are actually from the television show. So you're getting a lot of voice acting from different actors.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, so they've kept the continuity with the show more than the books per se, but they actually bring up, from what I hear, some elements of the books that didn't actually make it into the show or whatever, just to incorporate into the game.
There's a lot of fun to be had in mind out of that.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, this company Telltale is amazing because they've managed to make compelling games out of almost everything that they've touched. They have another game called The Wolf Among Us, which is based on the Fables comics. So Fables was never made into a movie, but there is a television show called Once Upon a Time that's sort of loosely kind of the same idea, where it's basically like fairy tale things that come to life. And anyway, but the Wolf Among Us game is actually quite good.
I've heard of this one now that I think about it.
Yeah, so essentially it follows the same kind of story arc that's followed in the Fables comic. So if you've ever read that from DC's Vertigo line, it's quite good. I mean, it gets pretty dark, but the game manages to keep it entertaining and fun. And for someone who's never actually read the comic, you can actually get into the game and still enjoy it. Like, you don't have to actually have read the comics in order to enjoy it. And that's kind of a common trait with all of this. Like, if you had never been a Star Wars person and you were thrown into Knights of the Old Republic, you would automatically feel at home in this universe because the story that gets told is actually well done enough that it will lead you by the nose into the different concepts or whatever, right? So
because they already had such a good framework to be within while they were creating this, even stuff like Jedi Knight and Dark Forces, the worlds felt lived in.
Yep.
and Knights of the Old Republic, no exception.
Yeah, no, they're amazing games, and everybody that I know that's played the MMO has said that the story missions, like as a solo player, because I mean with MMOs sometimes it's very hard to play it by yourself and actually still enjoy the experience. WoW has done a terrific job of making the solo experience kind of more of a thing for people if that's the way they want to play. Yeah, but in this game you can do the entire 1 to 60 crawl or whatever, like to your maximum level in the game by yourself.
Is Telltale making video games, or are they making stories and then turning them into video games?
Well, I think they're making stories that
it's starting to sound that way to me, based on what you're saying.
A lot of the games that they produce are based on existing properties, so they don't do a lot of stuff that's really fairly original. But having said that, they're able to make a story out of friggin' anything. Like the last game that they released before this one was a game based on Minecraft. So it was a narrative game that was based on the Minecraft like block building game or whatever. So you can get this game where you're basically a hero in the world of Minecraft, and it's telling a story about that. So I mean, and this is a game that basically has no story at all. Like so, it's taken the source material and it's actually done something interesting narratively with it. Which is very
really
neat.
Cool.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what is going to be the future of all this, like if the game will end up being the first point of contact for some of these stories. And I mean, it happens. Some of the games that have been released that aren't based on things that have already happened, like say like Mass Effect and Dragon Age and stuff, they have huge followings, and they are, their sequels are anticipated by millions of people when they're about to come out or whatever. So I mean, there's something to be said for games standing on their own as an artistic medium and something that people want to actually consume first versus like reading the book or doing this or doing that. But for a lot of these games that have come out that are based on properties, I mean, it's just been getting better and better. I mean, I still find it's ridiculous that the best thing for Walking Dead is the Walking Dead game. Like, I mean, it's so much better than the comics. The story is so much more compelling and so much more tragic. But I've
played some of it, so I know what you're talking about.
I mean,
the latest stuff has been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that in a sec, but the fact is that we have, I guess, an embarrassment of riches again, but in a different medium, and it's kind of exciting to see.
That's
okay. I mean, yeah, for people that are kind of into games more than us, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, you forgot this and you forgot that. So you know what? You can email us or come on our Facebook page and yell at us for being dumb. But just something that I've noticed recently is that a lot of these things that have come out is just, they're just way better than the stuff that they're supposedly based on. So it's pretty awesome.
Tells you a lot.
That's our show for this week. I'm not sure exactly what our schedule is going to be like next week. It'll be sometime after Halloween that we'll be shooting again, so we'll probably have a lot more TV to talk about. We don't know whether we have anybody that's going to be on the show for sure or not, but if we have a guest, obviously we'll get on the Facebook page. If you want to be on the show, give us an email at mikeandrobshow@gmail.com. So mikeandrobshow@gmail.com. Or come to our Facebook page and make a post. If you want to talk with us or yell at us about anything that you've heard on the show tonight, obviously feel free to get in touch with us.
We want to get involved.
Yeah,
let's mix it up.
We want to fight you. So if you want to come on and yell at us, that's great too. But if we don't hear from you, I guess we'll see you next week. Take it easy.
Have a good week.
Ready to science this shit up?
We're going to science the shit out of this.
Marker. That's going to make it into
Okay, that's going to make it. I should just get you started, make you rant.
No, I'm not going to, I don't know.